Well, what, oh what, oh what is Batman doing on top of the Odeon in Leicester Square? Much as I walk the streets of London and get to know it, some things still surprise me, and one of them is the fact there's a statue up there. Today we're at Leicester Square, and eventually I'll be walking to Charing Cross. But first, a bit of history. Civitas Londinum is a bird's eye view of the then extent of London, first printed from woodblocks in about 1561. It is widely known as the Agas map, from a spurious attribution to a surveyor called Ralph Agas. The map offers a richly detailed view of the buildings and streets of the city and its surroundings. Shown here is the westernmost woodblock. The original Charing Cross, an Eleanor Cross, was erected where Strand, Whitehall and Haymarket met. Strand runs east towards London and is a thoroughfare lined by the houses of the rich, many of them fronting onto the Thames. Running north is St Martin's Lane, which was the main route north from Charing Cross before Charing Cross Road was built late in the 19th century. The church of St Martin in the Fields is visible on the map beside the lane. Running northwest from Charing Cross is the Haymarket, its then rural nature indicating its name origin. Immediately behind the Eleanor Cross is the Royal Mews. The Royal Hawks were kept in the Royal Mews from 1377 onwards. The name derives from the fact that the hawks were confined there at moulting time. In 1534, King Henry VIII decided to rebuild the Charing Cross Mews as a stables, the hawks having been given alternative accommodation. It kept its former name when it acquired this new function. On the Agas map, the Royal Mews can be seen extending back towards the site of today's Leicester Square. The site of Leicester Square was, in 1561, St Martin's Field, the common ground of the parish of St Martin in the Fields. The land had belonged to the abbot and convent of Westminster Abbey, and it was a place for St Martin's parishioners to graze their animals, grow crops on a small scale, and, as depicted on the map, dry cloth. In the late 1530s, after the dissolution of the monasteries, Henry VIII took control of the 7-acre St Martin's Field, but otherwise did nothing with his purchase, leaving parishioners in peace to continue their use of the land. The land ownership descended to King Charles I, who, with London's urban area creeping ever nearer, decided to cash in. He sold the field to Robert Sidney in 1630. Robert Sidney happened to be the rich and influential second Earl of Leicester and decided that he needed a large country house near London. By 1635 he had built himself Leicester House at the northern end of his land. Sidney enclosed the land in front of the house and barred St Martin's parishioners from using what previously had been their common ground. It was usual for the powerful to roll over the long-established rights of mere peasants. But, with loins girded, the locals sought King Charles's intervention. King Charles evidently showed some interest in what had previously been his own land. Unusually, he delegated 3 privy councillors to mediate and obviously had a quiet word. Their ruling compelled Leicester to maintain a portion of his property, later called Leicester Fields, accessible to the parish community and in perpetuity. This single legal ruling dictated the subsequent history of Leicester Square. Leicester Fields remained on the edge of the urban area, but 40 years later, London had overtaken it. The surrounding area was developed in the 1670s. It was initially fashionable. Leicester House was leased out and was for a while the 18th century residence of Frederick, Prince of Wales. At the end of the 17th century, Philip Sidney, 3rd Earl of Leicester, allowed a small amount of retail development in booths along the front of Leicester House. The covenant to keep Leicester Fields public meant that it began to serve as a venue for popular entertainments since the parishioners' rural needs were long past. Buildings surrounded the field on all sides and it began to be called Leicester Square. By the late 18th century, the square was no longer a smart address, and Leicester House, leased out by the family, became home of a museum of natural curiosities called the Holofusikon. I'll spell that, as I have no idea how to pronounce it. Sir Ashton Lever opened the Holofusikon, also known as the Leverian Museum, much easier to say, in Leicester House in 1775. The Leverian collection was a compilation of natural history and ethnographic artefacts, and especially renowned for its acquisitions from Captain James Cook's voyages. Lever transformed Leicester House's first-floor rooms into a spacious gallery. He showcased roughly 25,000 items, valued at over £40,000. The museum's name reflected its purported comprehensive coverage of natural history, essentially serving as an extensive cabinet of curiosities. Despite his constant pursuit of new exhibits, Lever's expenditure on acquisitions outpaced entrance revenue. The museum had to close. Leicester House was demolished in 1792 due to rising debts following the extinction of the Leicester peerage. It was replaced by Leicester Place. That in turn was converted into a church in 1865, and it is now the site of the Prince Charles Cinema. Into the 19th century, Leicester Square was noted as an entertainment venue, with many amusements peculiar to the era. Wilde's Great Globe was built for the Great Exhibition of 1851 and housed a giant-scale map of Earth. In 1854, the Alhambra, a large theatre, was built and several hotels grew up around the square, making it popular with visitors to London. In 1874, Albert Grant acquired the remaining freehold and gifted the garden to the Metropolitan Board of Works, financing its landscaping himself. Ownership subsequently transferred through various public entities, ultimately coming under the City of Westminster's purview. The Alhambra burned down in 1882, but reopened the following year. In the early 20th century, it became a popular venue for ballet. It was demolished in 1936 and replaced by the Odeon Cinema. The Empire Cinema opened in 1927. With the decline of the movies after the Second World War, Leicester Square developed a seedy reputation. Things were not helped by the 1979 Winter of Discontent, when the bin men went on strike. Leicester Square was used as an overflow dump, earning it the nickname of Fester Square. The square underwent significant renovation in 2010. The project, which included 12,000 square metres of granite paving and a water feature encircling its Shakespeare statue, was completed in May 2012. It remains a public square, unbuilt upon, simply because a King of England, who subsequently lost his head, decided to honour the 1630s grazing rights of locals. This is us crossing Cranbourne Street, and this is one of the entrances to Leicester Square station. The main one is across the road at this point. I'm speeding up the camera just because it was quite dark on the morning I filmed this. It had been raining and there's a lot of camera shake, so it's not I'm just not trying to do a very clever smart effect. It's just that the camera shake was quite noticeable, but I just slowed it down to normal speed to have a look down Cecil Court here, which was been long famous for independent antiquarian bookshops. And we're still speeding up and just about to pass under the Garrick Theatre, the awning of. So this road didn't exist at the time of the original map, the Agas map I showed. This is Charing Cross Road, and this would have been running through St Martin's Field. And the bottom of St Martin's Field would have been around about this point, as the film recovers its normal speed. That's St Martin's in the Fields Church in the background, which was the cause of all the St Martin's business. And this is the Edith Cavell Memorial. She was quite a heroine of the First World War, as she treated both British and German soldiers alike, but got captured and shot for her troubles. So we're just side on St Martin in the Fields Church. I have to apologise for keep calling it St Martin's in the Fields. It's just a verbal tick I have. It's a singular, St Martin in the Fields. And this church was on St Martin's Lane and not on Trafalgar Square. It actually, by staying in the same place, it changed its situation completely. Trafalgar Square was built later. And this is one of those pieces of trivia you see in pub quizzes. Good old Nelson's column straight ahead now. I've covered Trafalgar Square extensively in other videos, so on this one I'm going to skirt past it and take a shortcut down to Charing Cross station. This street dates from the 1830s and it's named after John Ponsonby, the first Earl of Leicester and later Baron Duncannon of Leicester. And this ran across the churchyard of St Martin's in the Fields. This is quite a beautifully sited old telephone box. I keep passing them and they're just part of the London furniture, but I often forget that they're quite beautiful. Fine view here of the Eleanor Cross, which was a 19th century reproduction of the Eleanor Cross which stood at the centre of London, where Queen Eleanor's coffin rested on her trips through the country to her final burial place at Westminster Abbey. And we'll briefly walk along Strand, but this is a really quick journey along Strand. We're not going to stay along here because we're going to cross the road just at this traffic island. Traffic islands, by the way, are a London invention. I think the first one was on Piccadilly to allow some lord to cross the road in safety, so he could reach halfway across the road and then cross the rest of it. So things come along that are quite unexpected. Traffic islands. So this is the entrance to Charing Cross Underground Station, and this is where we finish our walk at Charing Cross Mainline Station. See you next time.